In this video, I'm going to be discussing how the timeline panel works and how to deal with frames, keyframes, and blank frames, as well as empty frames. So to start off, I have the same example that I used in the layers video. We have a car on one layer. I'll just hide that and show it so you can see. Then we have the front wheel, which is over there, and the back wheel, which is over there. Okay, so each of these layers has one keyframe, as you can see. And by default, if you have any content on your stage, there's going to be at least one keyframe because there is actually content there for that specific layer. So the first thing I want to show you is how to create a new frame. So all a frame does is it extends the length of the keyframe. So to do that, I select an empty block on my timeline. So I've zoomed in my timeline a little bit. You can just come over here to this slider down here. If you zoom it out, the frames get smaller. If you zoom it in, they get bigger. This is quite nice because you can see exactly what's going on. Also at the bottom here, this little number 1 shows me the current frame. So I'm on frame 1. And if I move this slider, the red playhead, which I can't do right now because there's no other frames, it will update this number. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to extend this car frame by 1. To do that, I click on the empty block, I right click and I say insert frame. Okay, so what you'll notice is you have the keyframe on frame 1, and on frame 2 we have this little block inside a gray block. So this is just indicating the end of the frame span. If I continue doing this, so I insert another frame and another one, you'll notice all that happens is this little block is moving to the end. So it's just showing me what is the last frame in the span. These other ones in between are simply normal frames. So what this means is when I move this playhead to essentially scrub through my animation over the frames, all these extra frames are doing is they're making this car stay on screen for longer. Okay, there's no movement, there's no change happening, the car is just staying longer. What you'll also notice is because the wheels aren't actually on frame 4, they're completely missing, as they are in frame 3 and frame 2. So if we want this car, the whole car, to stay on screen for 4 frames, we also need to extend this frame span as well as this one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to click on this last one, right click, insert frame. You'll notice that now the front wheel is there until the 4th frame. A shortcut to do this is press F5. So you select the block in which you want to add your frame and you press F5. And now you can see the whole car stays on screen for 4 frames. So the next thing I want to do is I want to move this car. So to do that, you need to add a new keyframe, because if you'll recall, keyframes allow you to create changes in movement. So to do that, we click on the empty block where we want to add our keyframe, you right click and you say insert keyframe. So once again, we're missing our wheels over here. I'm just going to leave that for now, but what I can do is I can move the car a little bit. And you'll notice now if I scrub through from frame 1 to 4 and then to frame 5, the car is moving. Okay, because this is a keyframe and this is a keyframe, and there's a change between the two of them. And that's essentially how we create our animation. So I'm just going to do the same over here. So the shortcut is F6. So I'm going to press F6 and F6 again. And then I'm just going to select both of these wheels and move them into place. Okay, so you can do that. You can select content on multiple layers and move it at the same time. So now if we move between the 2 frames, you can see that there is movement, essentially. And now a faster way to create more animation is to jump a little bit further. Let's say we want another 4 frames. So we can jump from 5 up to 9, and we can press, I'm highlighting all 3 and I'm pressing F6 just to add in new keyframes. And you'll see it's extended that span by 3 more keyframes. I can then come over here, I can select my whole car and I can move it a little bit more. And I can continue doing that, press F6, move my frames, press F6, and move my frames. So now if I scrub through my animation, you'll notice that the car is moving. So I hope you can tell the difference between frames and keyframes. Remember that frames only extend the span, whereas keyframes actually change the movement. You can always come back in, so let's say I highlight this frame over here, I can then move the car anywhere I want, and it will then be different in that specific keyframe. Bear in mind that if the next keyframe, so if this set of keyframes is based on the position of this set of keyframes, so if something is moving incrementally forward, then changing something earlier on is going to affect everything, because now I have to come in here and I have to move it there and I have to do the same over here, and that can get very tedious and time consuming. I'm just going to undo all of that. Another feature of the timeline, sorry, let me just move that back. Another feature of the timeline panel is the onion skin feature. It's right here at the bottom. You have multiple versions, but I like this one. Essentially, it puts this span here at the top of your keyframe, of your timeline, and you can drag on it. Let me just place it there. So what it is showing me is all the contents of those frames. Now, because this is showing a span, there's no change over here. But if I drag this to here, you can see that this little outline on the screen here shows me what's actually happening in this frame. And same over here, because it's overlapping a little bit onto this keyframe, I can see what's going to happen in the next frame. And if I move it to here, you can see it's overlapping 3 keyframes, and so I can see the outlines of what's going on. This makes it a lot easier to animate. You can also drag the span, so if it's annoying you, you can change how many frames you're actually seeing. You can also see into the future, like this. Okay, so I'm just going to turn that off. Another feature, you'll see that I'm automatically just dragging this red playhead around. You can do that to see your animation, or you can press the play button and it will play through your animation. You can also see how many seconds your animation is here at the bottom with the elapsed time. And if you want to see this animation in your browser, you can press Ctrl-Enter to render it. And that is everything I have. Oh wait, before I finish, I should explain blank keyframes. So if I take a frame and I delete all the content on that frame. So here we have the front wheel. You can see it's showing me where I am. If I press delete on my keyboard, you'll notice that it's now changed to a blank keyframe. So the reason it's blank is because that little dot is not colored in, and that means that on that frame there will be nothing there. So if you would like to have a frame where everything is blank, you would just simply have to delete everything, and you'll notice now that there will be a frame or a section where there is nothing on screen. You can also insert your own blank keyframes by right-clicking and saying Insert Blank Keyframe, which allows you to do that as well. One last thing that you should also be aware of is if you create a new keyframe by pressing F6 or right-clicking and saying Insert Keyframe, it will automatically copy everything from the previous keyframe onto this keyframe, which is quite nice because you want to continue moving it from where it was before. So it already does that for you. And lastly, to remove the frame, you click right-click and you say Remove Frame.